The sound deadening material we're going to be using is the same stuff you saw applied around the subwoofers in the sail panels in the back of the car. It's provided by Second Skin. It's a model called Damplifier Pro. We have 40 sheets of this stuff. It's basically a thin layer of aluminum with a backing of a kind of dampening heavy adhesive on it. It's kind of a rubber with an adhesive surface on it. We're going to be applying that around the vehicle. Like I said before, I don't want to use too much of this, so I don't want the car to be too heavy, but we only have 40 sheets of it. It's 1 foot by 2 foot for each sheet. And I'm going to focus on the center tunnel since that's where most of the heat is coming up from, and then work my way out towards the floors. We'll get the doors as well, and if I can, some of the trunk area. Okay, marked some areas I want to trim for the first piece. The adhesive backing on the sound deadening material is pretty strong, so it doesn't really need to be that clean underneath it. Obviously you don't want it to be completely covered in dust, but I'm going to go ahead and, since this I want to be completely permanent, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up a little bit. I'm using window cleaner since that doesn't leave any kind of a waxy residue. It doesn't claim to refresh wax on the surface. It's meant simply to get everything completely off. The area you're looking at right now, this is pretty much the back of the center console. It bolts down right here and has some cup holders for the back seat. The armrest is about here with the storage container, and then the armrest for the back seat, or the center between the two seats anyway, is about here. These are the footwells for the back seats. I'm going to go grab our sound deadening and let's see if I cut away enough material to make it fit. Here's our piece. See, this is extremely sticky, so wherever I put it down, that's pretty much where it's going to stay. After I installed the first piece of sound deadening, the skies opened up and it started pouring rain, so it's now the next day, but we're ready to put in our second piece. So let's get that mocked up. Before I prepped this, I went ahead and took out these little wire loom clips that held in our wires here to make some room. Now that the sound deadening is installed, it's time to reinstall the woofer speaker in the door panel. This is part of the component Rockford Fosgate door speakers. The tweeter mounts to the door panel, the inner door lining, but the woofer mounts to the door. I kept the factory harness and the wiring in the back. Next step is to reinstall the vapor barrier. The vapor barrier is coated in this kind of mastic. It's a adhesive that never fully dries. It always stays sticky, so it's reusable, which is good, although it gets a little bit less sticky if you get dirt in it like this. I tried to keep it as clean as possible. However, we can reactivate it with a little bit of heat. This is the tweeter. These are all the door switches, the window switches, and the door locks. Now, because the adhesive reactivates with heat, it also deactivates with heat. And without the inner door lining here, in the summer, this car gets really hot with all the glass up on the roof, and this will actually melt enough to allow the vapor barrier to fall back into the car, which is why I have blue tape on the other side. So we're going to do our best to prevent that from happening. Okay, next order of business, passenger side door.
A few moments later.
Well, we went from 60 degrees and getting rained out the last 2 weekends to 96 or 98 degrees, depending on which weather app you trust, and getting beaten down by the sun. But we're going to continue. This door is almost finished on the passenger side. I'm just going to add an extra little bit here to keep the surface from vibrating. I realize this looks like I'm not knocking very hard on the door to make it sound quieter, but I assure you I'm hitting it pretty hard. If I hit it any harder, I'm going to bruise my knuckles. Now moving to the front of the center tunnel. We're over the transmission. Well, that's one box down, 20 sheets, 40 square feet of sound deadening material used up, minus a few scraps, so it's time to open the second box. All I have left are a few little pieces. Sometimes these scraps are good for filling in little notches that are missing from scrap pieces that are larger than these. So I always save a few. They can also be used for dampening vibrations in between panels. Sometimes you got a piece of plastic vibrating against another piece of plastic in the car, and that really annoys me, so if I can do something to stop it, I'll take one of these pieces and just stick it in there. Usually that's enough to quiet it down. And time to open the new box. Let's mark our tally. First sheet down. And let's grab a fresh sheet out of the box. And we are almost done. These are the last few bits right here. They're not stuck down yet. These, we got one on the top here, and a couple on the side, right there. this bit and this bit. The reason why I'm taking all these off is because you can see there's a giant hole in the floor. I cut this to make clearance for what you can see in the back there. That is the torque arm that goes to the rear axle. That's what keeps it from wrapping on itself when the traction gets applied to the tires underneath. And it's a beefier torque arm, so it takes up more space than the stock one. And I need to cut clearance because my car is lowered by an inch and a quarter. So it would impact the floor otherwise. It's not a lot that it intrudes into the cabin. I think even when I patch this hole, there should be enough space for the seat back to fit in an angle right here. And we will remove these. I have to clearance this space around here so that I can grind off any of the paint and this body filler that they have here. I think it's called panel bond. It's a type of adhesive that keeps moisture and other things from going between the panels. So this is one sheet of metal, this is another sheet of metal. These are spot welds right here. And they bond the two panels together, but there's still a seam in between. So this panel bond is going to be in our way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of tubing that's the same diameter on the inside as the diameter on the outside of this torque arm underneath, or maybe slightly larger than that, so it's not an exact fit. And I'm going to cut a section of it that's going to match this hole right here, so that way there's clearance should the suspension bottom out, but there's no opening anymore. And although cutting a hole in the floor of the car seems like it might weaken it, it's actually forming a kind of gusset here. If you see these two panels at an angle, this panel is coming down and this panel is coming up. This is the tunnel down here. And if you form a gusset across here, this should actually make the car stronger. So I'm gonna raise up the suspension and make clearance underneath so we can access this from both sides. I'll cut a piece and then we're gonna weld it together. And here's the final result. As you can see, the floor looks practically good as new. Once we throw the carpet and the floor mats over that, it'll look perfectly stock. Lots of sound deadening material up here in the front, and then I tapered off as I went back. Here's our hatch area. This is where the gas tank is underneath here. And the storage inside the hatch. This is the spare tire well. And here we have the passenger side. Again, plenty of coverage here. This is where one of the catalytic converters hangs out. On the earlier LT1 versions of the F-bodies, there was a single large catalytic converter, hence the very large bump in the floor to clear it. There is a catalytic converter here on my vehicle, but it's much smaller and doesn't require such a large bump in the floor. I think here it's fine because the seat is still here, but in this spot it would be nice if this area was a little bit flatter due to the fact that passengers' feet go in here and they always ask, why is there such a large bump in the floor? This is underneath the seat. This is the rear passenger footwell. Again, looks almost stock. Like there was hardly any damage before. And then here's the area where the seat back in the back seat goes. And I've temporarily covered the hole with some old sound deadening material there, just to make sure no rats get in here or any other kinds of vermin. As you saw, we did the headliner up there for the center of the T-top, and a little bit on the dash
don't know what these little metallic inserts are on the top of the dash on either side. I'm going to assume that it's something related to assembly at the factory when they set up the car, and then they close off that area once the dashboard is installed or something. And as we remember, the doors on both sides are also completely covered on the inside of the exterior door material. A little bit of scrap. Gotta throw that away. All right, pop quiz. If you're going to change your suspension geometry and you want to check to make sure everything clears at full compression, how can you do that? The springs are preventing the vehicle from fully compressing. Maybe the bump stops are also preventing it. So how can you check it? Do you remove the shocks? Do you remove the springs? Do you remove the bump stops? Do you remove some combination thereof? The answer is you remove the springs. So we're going to take the springs out of the car, and that way we can lift up the suspension all the way. Since it's a live axle, it's pretty easy to do. But to do that, we first have to jack up the car, and then we have to disconnect the shocks to get the springs out. As you can see, the springs are out. That's the top of the spring perch there. Shocks are still connected at the top end, but disconnected at the bottom down here. And as you saw, I had to disconnect the anti-roll bar to get enough droop to remove the springs. So I disconnected the shackles underneath. But now we have enough suspension freedom that we can actually raise the suspension up to full compression. And I'll find out if the bump stops are preventing me from measuring inside the car. So here is torque arm all the way up against the underside of the chassis. It doesn't come all the way through, but it definitely would hit this surface before. I probably could have bent this metal, to be honest, to clear this, but I wanted to give it a little bit of headroom in there. So now I need to figure out what size tubing I need to put over it. Okay, here's how I'm going to figure out what size tubing I need to buy. So I've made a line that's 1.5 inches across. That's the width of this opening that I've marked here is 1.5 inches. And we know that the tube sticks up by 1/8 of an inch. Now I don't want to cut it too close, so I've marked 1/8 of an inch here, but I want more headway up there, at least 1/4 inch total, if not 3/8 of an inch. So all we have to do is take a circle template
and put that over it. This is a 2-inch circle right here. And this is probably what I'm going to be able to find. The increments of tubing are probably not that granular, but we'll see. So this one gives you about, what is that, 5/16, like 2.5/8. That's an extra 150% room underneath there. This is probably what I'll wind up buying if I can find it. However, if I can find 2.25-inch tubing, you can see that that clears by just a little over, or just about, by 1/4 of an inch, 2/8. So that's double the amount of room that I need. If I can find 2.25, I'll buy it. This is the piece of scrap tubing that I selected. It's a foot long. I was looking for actually 2.5-inch diameter. I found that that probably would be a little lower profile and would still clear, but I couldn't find anything in the scrap size, so we went ahead and cut this off of a, I don't know, maybe 5-foot section that I didn't need all of, and even this I won't use more than a few inches and a small amount of the circumference. Before I start fitting it, I'm going to clean up the surface here. There's a whole bunch of goop from the sound deadening I was using to cover the hole for quite some time. This stuff is pretty sticky. Alright, now that the gooey stuff has been removed, I'm gonna look at this panel bond seam sealer stuff. Alright, that looks a lot better. Now that we've cleared up a space here for the welds to happen and prevent the car from catching on fire when those welds occur, I actually have an idea of what the surface looks like. So you can see this is quite a bit deeper. It's maybe just under 1/8 of an inch thick, and that's the surface we need to build to, not here. And when they constructed the car, you have one panel down here that forms the back seat bottoms. I think it's the whole floor panel, honestly, of the car. It looks like, yeah, this is the entire floor pan right here, and then it's welded to this panel up here. The two overlap, so the bottom panel comes all the way up to this seam right here, and then the back panel comes down and comes to about here, this corner. I can feel the lip, it's just above, it's about here. It goes all the way across at this point. So you have two overlapping, and we're going to add a third panel over the top of it. So I need to now fit that piece into the slot we've made. Well, that didn't work. So if we look on the sides here, you can see there's quite a gap on the edges of it. This gap here could go away, but the ones on the sides just aren't going to get filled. Instead, what I did was I made a cardboard template, and I used a paper towel roll, which is a little too small in diameter, but if you bend it, you can make it approximate what I need. So this was the first one, it's the second one, and then I transferred that over here onto our tubing. So I'm going to cut a second piece and try again. After a whole bunch of back and forth, I finally have a workable part.
As you can see, I have a nice seal around the edge, and I should be able to weld all that up. I know it may look like it's stainless steel, but it's still the same material. It still has rust on the bottom side of it. It's just brushed to remove the rust that was all over the top side. I'll probably bevel some of the edges, like over here in the corner, to get good weld penetration. Okay, the patch panel is done and ready to be welded. Patch panel is sanded down on the bottom, just like the top, no more rust. I got my patch panel welded in. I called a welder and had him do this for me. Welds aren't super pretty, but they're functional. You can see that the heat got into the part, so you got good penetration. You can see here from underneath all the way through to the other side, and got good coverage all the way around. You basically tacked it back and forth, not a continuous bead, so that we don't get too much warping of the metal or burn a hole through, which is what I needed him to do. And I'm going to go over it not for aesthetic purposes, but for adhesion. When I put the Fr33 over the surface, I want it to stick really well, so I'm going to go over this thing with a wire wheel and knock off some of the residue on here. I think some of the panel bond on the sides smoked a little bit, so you see there's a little bit of darkening around these areas. Just kind of knock that oxidation layer off of the top of it, and then apply a few layers of Fr33. Well, at least it looks a little more shiny and less boogery now. But mainly, that's just to get the Fr33 to stick and not have any rust issues or flaking down the road. Just remember, this is all going to be hidden underneath the carpet, and nobody will ever see it except for you and me. I've filed down any large pointy bits of slag that were remaining, so we don't have any places where it's going to stick through the carpet or where the Fr33 won't stick to it. I vacuumed the area and wiped it down with brake clean. So now the surface is ready to accept the Fr33. I'm going to throw on my respirator and apply the first coat. Okay, the first coat is dry. It's time to put the second coat on. You can see that the Fr33 pulled away a little bit from the peaks of the weld here, so there's not good coverage over the tops of the weld. It's pretty good coverage in the middle, the little dots of the slag that landed on here. Although the little dots of the slag also need some more coverage. So we'll put a second coat on the top and bottom, and when that dries, we can put the interior back in. The last time I did this from below, made quite a mess. So I've put a little umbrella, inverted umbrella on our sponge applicator here so that it doesn't drip down onto my hands. I put down paper so the driveway is clean. It's just got all over my arm and shirt and everywhere else. And the final coat of Fr33 is now applied to the surface. Everything is nicely protected against rust, and the car should be even stronger than it was from the factory. Essentially, this little patch here functions like a gusset between this vertical panel here and this nearly horizontal panel that's the center tunnel right there. So that should make the car stronger. I think this is a little thicker material as well than the factory sheet metal. So nothing lost and something gained. Not just strength, but of course clearance for the torque arm not to hit the center tunnel. And now we can apply the last of our sound deadening material and move on to putting the interior back into the vehicle. And with that, the last of the sound deadening is complete. And this is what's left for scraps. Threw all these in a bag just in case I need to shim anything later. I would say this is about the equivalent of one sheet or so, maybe a little more. So I used 24 sheets minus 1. That gives me 23 sheets or 46 square feet worth of sound deadening material applied inside the car. There's one more thing we have to do before putting the carpet back in the car. It's these little clips that I removed. One stayed on the passenger side, but I pulled off all three over on the driver's side here. You can see one of them was in this area. So I took the liberty of putting some double stick tape on there. We'll stick them back on. I think these are the two big ones. So one goes here. One was here. Yeah, guiding it over the tunnel. And one of them was here, guiding this around the rear seat. So go ahead and put those back on, and then the carpet. this little spot in the carpet right here is where that patch panel is to clear the torque arm. And as you can see, or perhaps not, there is almost no deformation to the carpet in this area, and certainly doesn't affect the motion of the back seat, which now clamps in perfectly and no issues. So I'd say that was a success. Now we have to put in the seat bottoms for the rear seats. Okay, back seats are back in the car, and as I mentioned before, the rear floor is now flat again. We have many layers between us and the metal. We've got the patch that I did. Remember, I put the rust converter on there and then painted over that with the Fr33. Then we have sound deadening material. Then we have the underlayer on the carpet here and the carpet itself, and then we have floor mats. So there's quite a bit to isolate it, but at least the floor mats are no longer bumpy. And we have a nice flat load floor for your feet in the back. And on the passenger side, rear footwell as well. Nice and flat, no bumps back here. Should work pretty well. I'm gonna leave the front seats out. I might temporarily store them in the car, but I think it's gonna make my life a lot easier when I go to reinstall the dashboard once I get that back from the upholstery shop. So I'm just gonna do what I can. We have the running boards over here on the inside, not the steps, but the plastic that trims the edge of the carpet here. This is one of the runners. This is from the passenger side. It has these holes here where the screws hold it down to the chassis, and this one is cracked. So I am going to plastic weld it from behind. Okay, got the plastic welded up, as you can see. Got a nice thick layer to reinforce things. Still kind of looks cracked on this side, but it's pretty strong. And this is really low in the cabin, so it's unlikely that you'll notice it. I certainly didn't notice it until I took this piece out. By the way, this is my first use of my new macro lens. You can even see the texture on the panel.